He was young, beautiful, and beloved, an actor who embodied light on screen. But his death revealed a darkness that even the brightest spotlight could not erase. Alan Fang, known to millions of Chinese viewers for his ethereal grace and quiet charm, was found dead under circumstances that remained shrouded in uncertainty. What should have been a moment of mourning quickly mutated into a labyrinth of questions, rumors, and supernatural claims. Nearly 2 months have passed, yet the collective unease refuses to fade. In the heart of this storm stands another name, Yang Mi, the acclaimed actress and co-star who once shared the screen, and perhaps something deeper, with Fang. Her name has now become a magnet for speculation, with online whispers suggesting that she, too, may have fallen into the same invisible trap that claimed him. Some say she has been hospitalized, others that she has fled across the sea to Taiwan. None of these claims have been verified, yet the uncertainty itself fuels the fire. The spark came not from Beijing or Shanghai, but from an unexpected corner of the world, a live stream by a British psychic named Ty William. In her broadcast, she spoke of a famous actress in danger, of a man trapped by unseen forces, and of secrets buried beneath the neon glow of China's entertainment empire. Her words, half prophecy, half performance, sent millions spiraling into speculation. But what happens when grief, censorship, and collective imagination collide? How does a private tragedy become a public spectacle? And how do whispers of the supernatural evolve into social commentary about control and fear? Behind the glamour and the excuses, what mechanisms are really driving this crisis? We will analyze every detail, from the initial mistakes to the irreversible damage, to understand how a single death could unravel an entire narrative about power, silence, and the cost of fame. Because in a culture where truth itself is often curated, every mystery becomes more than a mystery. It becomes a mirror. A mirror that reflects not only the fate of Alan Fang and Yang Mi, but also the fragile boundary between art and authority, between the story the world sees and the one that must never be told. So the question remains, was this truly a haunting mystery, or a reflection of a deeper, unspoken fear within China's glittering entertainment empire? Fame in China has always been a paradox. It offers unimaginable visibility yet demands absolute obedience. Every rising star knows the rule. The higher you climb, the tighter the leash becomes. Alan Fang understood this too well. Before his death, Fang was more than just another handsome actor. He was the quiet force behind a generation of fantasy dramas, elegant, disciplined, almost otherworldly. Viewers adored his gentleness, his composure, his almost sacred image of purity. But behind that serenity was an industry built on contracts so binding that they blurred the line between management and ownership. In China's entertainment ecosystem, freedom is a privilege reserved for none. Fang's management company, known among fans as ruthless in both strategy and secrecy, controlled every aspect of its artists' lives, scripts, appearances, even their public relationships. When whispers began that Fang was seeking to leave his contract, the tone of his online presence changed. Fewer updates. Canceled projects. An unsettling silence that fans initially dismissed as exhaustion. But in hindsight, that silence feels ominous. At the center of this narrative stands Yang Mi, one of China's most powerful actresses and producers. Her reputation has always been that of elegance and ambition, an artist who carved her empire in a male-dominated field. Sources claim she tried 3 times to collaborate with Fang, yet every project collapsed mysteriously. Once it was creative differences, another time scheduling conflicts. But to the public, it all felt like something larger, a pattern of suppression, of unseen interference. These repeated failures built a mythology of their own. Fans began to imagine forces conspiring behind closed doors, manipulating fates like chess pieces. In a nation where open criticism of power is perilous, myth becomes the language of resistance. When facts are censored, fiction fills the void. The tragedy of Alan Fang, then, is not just about one man's death, it is about the systemic suffocation of artistic freedom. Each contract becomes a cage, each rumor a coded protest. The entertainment world, glittering on the surface, hides its scars beneath layers of bureaucracy and fear. Actors learn to smile through exhaustion. Producers learn to speak in riddles. And so when Fang died, the silence that followed was deafening. No studio tributes. No official statements beyond sterile condolences. The vacuum of truth became the perfect breeding ground for supernatural narratives, psychics, ghosts, and hidden prisons. People needed something, anything, to explain a loss that the system refused to acknowledge. In this emotional fog, Yang Mi's name resurfaced, not as a symbol of power, but as a potential victim. The psychic's description of a tall, graceful woman with long hair and a sad smile seemed to match her too perfectly. And because she remained silent, that silence was interpreted as danger. But perhaps the real danger was never to Yang Mi alone, it was to the very idea of transparency. In a controlled media environment, the absence of truth is itself a form of violence. What is left behind is speculation, turning grief into rebellion and rumor into survival instinct. This is the root of the phenomenon. When a society cannot question authority, it begins to question reality. The ghost stories, the coded posts, the whispers in fan communities, they are not madness, they are coping mechanisms. As one anonymous blogger wrote before his post was deleted, when we cannot find justice, we create stories that make sense of the injustice. It is in these stories that the dead find voice, and the living find courage. When silence becomes a weapon, even grief turns into an act of rebellion. It began, as modern storms often do, with a live stream. On the night of November 4th, British psychic Ty William appeared on camera, her voice trembling as she spoke of a famous actress in danger. The message was vague, but her description, tall, delicate, soft-spoken, was enough for millions of viewers to identify one name, Yang Mi. Within hours, fragments of her broadcast spread across Weibo, then crossed the firewall to Reddit, Twitter, and YouTube. The digital wildfire had begun. Screens flickered with speculation. Threads multiplied faster than facts. Some users swore that Ty Williams' revelations matched secret government reports. Others claimed the psychic had no idea who Yang Mi was, which somehow made her words feel even more prophetic. And amid this chaos, one unspoken truth emerged. People believed not because the story was true, but because it felt true. Across the Chinese internet, censorship played its predictable part. Posts were deleted within minutes, hashtags were throttled, and videos vanished as quickly as they appeared. But suppression only amplified curiosity. The harder the system tried to erase the conversation, the louder it grew beyond its borders. Within a week, foreign bloggers and diaspora activists had taken up the story. Subtitles appeared. Reaction videos multiplied. Hashtags like Justice for Alan Fang and Where is Yang Mi trended briefly before being shadow banned. The drama had escaped its country of origin. It had become a global phenomenon. In Los Angeles, small groups of Chinese students and film enthusiasts gathered on Hollywood Boulevard, holding signs with Fang's name written in candlelight fonts. Thousands of miles away in New York, his image flashed across a rented digital billboard in Times Square, his face frozen in perpetual calm, accompanied by the words, "Truth never dies." And for the fans, these gestures were more than mourning. They were rebellion. Each poster, each hashtag was a declaration that the story could not be buried. The more officials dismissed the claims as baseless, the more people suspected a cover-up. The line between activism and obsession blurred. In this echo chamber of grief and defiance, the narratives multiplied like mirrors. Another psychic, Deborah, entered the scene, claiming that a female actress had tried to rescue a male co-star from captivity and was now prisoner 48 in a secret facility beneath a museum. Her words, bizarre and unverifiable, nonetheless fit perfectly into the growing mythos. Viewers compared timestamps, analyzed her accent, and debated the metaphysical logistics of such a prison. It was madness, but it was organized madness. Meanwhile, state media maintained a chilling silence. No denial. No clarification. Just the cold efficiency of omission. And that silence spoke louder than any statement could. Soon the story became less about Fang or Yang Mi, and more about the system itself. Foreign journalists framed it as a parable of control, proof that in the digital age, censorship breeds conspiracy faster than truth can breathe. The Western press, ever hungry for symbolic stories, painted Fang as the archetype of the silenced artist, a martyr in a battle between art and authority. Back in China, online communities split into two camps. The believers saw the psychic claims as coded truth, metaphors for real corruption, human trafficking, or political imprisonment. The skeptics dismissed it as emotional hysteria, accusing foreign media of exploiting tragedy for views. Yet both sides shared one sentiment: exhaustion. The kind that comes when reality feels too scripted to be trusted. As the noise grew, the identities of the storytellers blurred. Bloggers disappeared for questioning, and foreign influencers were accused of spreading disinformation. Screenshots of deleted posts circulated like contraband. And every time the authorities tightened the grip, another layer of meaning appeared, half protest, half prayer. At the center of this maelstrom, Yang Mi's silence became the story itself. Her absence from public events, her empty social feeds, her uncharacteristic retreat, all turned her into a phantom presence. She was no longer an actress but a projection of fear, of resistance, of everything the audience was not allowed to say aloud. This was not merely media, it was mythology in real time. From Beijing to Boston, people debated not whether the story was factual, but whether it was possible. Could an entire system conspire to erase one man and punish the woman who tried to help him? Could art truly be that dangerous? What began as a rumor had transformed into a global mirror reflecting universal anxiety, the fear that power, left unchecked, can rewrite even the definition of truth. And so, the digital storm continued to rage. Every deleted post spawned two more. Every silence fueled another theory. In a landscape where evidence was scarce but emotion abundant, storytelling itself became a weapon of defiance. Because sometimes, when truth is locked away, imagination breaks the chains first. What do you think about this? Comment justice below if you believe truth will eventually rise. By mid-October, the storm had grown too violent to ignore. Every new day brought another rumor, another claim, another disappearance. People spoke of underground museums, frozen bodies, secret prisons, and coded warnings hidden in deleted posts. The story of Alan Fang had become something far greater than one man's death. It had become a mirror reflecting the paranoia of an entire generation. And then came the darkest hour. Reports began circulating that Fang's mother, who had allegedly tried to seek justice for her son, had been taken away, or worse, had died under mysterious circumstances. The psychic Tai William claimed she had crossed over, while state media simply erased her from existence. Online memorials for her vanished within minutes. For a moment, even the most devoted believers fell silent. It felt as if the last thread of hope had been cut. That silence was heavy, suffocating. The kind of silence that follows a public execution, not of a person, but of belief itself. Yet out of that stillness, something extraordinary began to happen. Independent bloggers, digital activists, and anonymous whistleblowers started piecing together fragments of information. Screenshots of deleted posts were archived offshore. Journalists abroad began interviewing exiled industry insiders who spoke, sometimes in whispers, of systemic abuse and exploitation. Slowly, patterns emerged. Names, timelines, hidden financial links. The narrative was no longer about psychics, it was about power. One voice rose above the noise, Lin Beishuan, a Chinese blogger who had been questioning the official version since day one. When he vanished briefly, the internet assumed the worst. But a week later, he reappeared with a post that simply read, "The truth is not gone. It's just waiting for courage." That sentence, short and haunting, became a rallying cry. It was reposted thousands of times before it was inevitably deleted, but by then, it had already crossed the wall. Western outlets quoted it. Protesters printed it on posters. It became the heartbeat of a movement that no algorithm could erase. In Los Angeles, activists projected Fang's image onto the Chinese consulate building with the words, "Justice is watching." In Seoul, a group of film students staged a silent performance called The 48th Room, inspired by Deborah's psychic tale of the imprisoned actress. The details didn't matter anymore, the message did. The story had transcended its origins. It was no longer about what was true, but about what needed to be true. Meanwhile, Yang Mi remained silent. Some saw her silence as fear, others as defiance. A few believed she was quietly funding legal aid for Fang's family. Whether those stories were factual or not didn't change their impact. In a system where truth was rationed, rumor had become a form of poetry, dangerous, defiant, unforgettable. This was the climax, not a revelation, but a reckoning. For decades, Chinese entertainment had thrived on the illusion of perfection, smiling idols, flawless scripts, patriotic productions. But the Fang saga shattered that illusion. It exposed the emotional and psychological violence hidden behind the aesthetics of fame. It forced people to ask, what is the cost of silence? Every empire of control eventually meets its paradox. The tighter it grips the truth, the more that truth slips through the cracks, disguised as art, whispered in song lyrics, buried in coded hashtags. In this sense, the mystery of Alan Fang was never a failure of investigation. It was a triumph of collective awakening. Around the world, his story became a case study for journalists and sociologists alike, an anatomy of digital resistance. They called it the Fang effect, the phenomenon where censorship breeds not silence, but creativity. 1 year later, a documentary surfaced online. It was brief, anonymous, and instantly banned in China. It contained no narration, no commentary, only a montage of faces. Fang smiling on set, Yang Mi in costume, blurred footage of fans lighting candles, and finally, a single line of text fading in and out of the screen. When truth is forbidden, stories become sacred. No one knows who made the film, but its message was clear. The pursuit of truth had become an act of art itself. And so, the storm that began with a psychic's trembling voice ended with something far more powerful: awareness. The details of Fang's death remain uncertain. The rumors about Yang Mi are still unverified. But the cultural shift is undeniable. The audience no longer consumes stories passively. They question, dissect, and demand. The once silent crowd has learned to speak in symbols the system cannot censor. In the end, it wasn't the supernatural that revealed the truth. It was humanity. The collective refusal to accept erasure. The courage to remember? Because even in a world where every light is monitored, one spark of conscience is enough to burn through the dark. The truth may still be buried, but the courage to seek it has already awakened millions. And sometimes that courage is the truth. It began as a tragedy, an unexpected death, a series of rumors, and the haunting silence that followed. But it did not end there. Out of that silence rose something the system could not predict: a collective awakening. Alan Fang's story, once confined to the borders of China's entertainment industry, has become a symbol that stretches far beyond it. He is no longer just an actor who died young. He is the echo of every artist silenced before his time. His name has turned into a metaphor whispered across continents, a reminder that beneath every glossy red carpet lies a hidden struggle for truth. Yang Mi, too, became more than the subject of rumor. Whether or not she was ever truly in danger has become irrelevant. What matters is what she came to represent: the unseen cost of visibility, the loneliness of fame, and the fragile humanity behind the image of perfection. Her silence became its own language, one that spoke louder than words. Some battles are fought not in public, but in survival itself. The digital storm has calmed, but the echoes remain. Thousands of posts may have been deleted, yet millions remember. Every shadow cast by censorship has been replaced by a constellation of small lights: fans, journalists, creators, each refusing to let the story die. They have turned mourning into movement, fear into vigilance, rumor into resistance. In a world increasingly shaped by algorithms and authority, perhaps the true miracle is not that people still believe in ghosts, but that they still believe in conscience. The hunger for truth, however imperfectly pursued, is what keeps societies alive. 1 year after the tragedy, a quiet memorial was held online. No names, no photos, just a blank screen and a line of text. For those who spoke when silence was safer. It lasted 15 minutes before being removed. But for those who watched, it was enough. Because the real story was never about death, it was about memory. About how remembrance itself becomes rebellion when truth is forbidden. And as the world moves on, the lesson endures. Fame is fragile, truth is dangerous, but silence is fatal. The mystery of Alan Fang may never be solved, but the questions he left behind will continue to burn. Inside every artist who dares to dream, every viewer who dares to doubt, and every soul who refuses to forget. For in the end, the light that endures is not the one that shines brightest, but the one that refuses to go out.